Hi, this is Denise McPherson of SDMAC Properties, and we welcome you to today's interview with an expert. You know, as a landlord, there is so much that really troubles us at times, and especially when we're having to deal with bad tenants. And we've heard it in the stories, we've heard it in the news, it's been hitting everybody, it's been affecting everybody during this COVID time, especially during this COVID time, even worse, but it happens all the time. And we wanted to find out, is there a way that landlords can help protect themselves or even find out which ones are good tenants, which ones are bad tenants? So for that effect, we actually have a special expert coming in today. His name is Brant Burwash of the Landlord Credit Bureau, and actually we're going to bring Brant in. And there we go. Welcome, Brant, to today's program. So this is actually our first doing a live stream with the StreamYard process that we're doing, so it's a little bit different. There we go. I thought my mouth was being cut off there. So this is great. You know, Brant, maybe you want to tell me a little bit who you are and exactly kind of what you do. Just a little wrap up before we start with, our conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I've had interest in the real estate industry for a long time. It actually started with my parents. So I grew up as a farm kid in Calgary, outside of Calgary, Alberta, and my parents actually had 2 rental properties. So from a very young age, I was cleaning out after tenants that left a mess and seeing the rewards, but also the challenges that had to do with rental properties. And that kind of sparked my interest in this industry. And now I've found several years later, I've invested in several different properties, everything from syndicates to mezz debt to commercial buildings. And now my role with Landlord Credit Bureau is I handle business development as well as partnerships. So on a daily basis, I get to speak with landlords to understand how they're using our product, sharing the advantages of actually using Landlord Credit Bureau and trying to find other ways that we can help build this industry for everybody involved.
And that's great. So this Landlord Credit Bureau, I mean, what exactly happened is I happened to be, and I think I mentioned to you when we had that conversation, I happened to be on just Googling on the internet, and I happened to come across your website. And the more I read, the more excited I got about what it is that you offer. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, we've got to get this guy and have a conversation. So and you probably know, I reached out online to the founder who, I guess, who's in BC, and you're actually in Toronto.
That's
so
correct.
You called me, I think it was in the middle of the night. I wasn't sleeping and I was Googling and I found you and I sent a message, and I think the next morning you called me, like early morning. I thought, this is fantastic. So I'm going to ask you, what exactly is Landlord Credit Bureau and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'll actually start with our founder that you mentioned, because we were actually created in 2012, and our founder is a former RCMP officer that spent 25 years in fraud protection and really saw a bit of a need in the market for something to exist that helps increase the rewards for landlords, but really helps reward those good tenants. Like, we often focus on some of the negative experiences with tenants as landlords, but there's so many positives that you want to reward them for. Our CEO then came on board, and he's a lawyer by trade, serial entrepreneur building companies, who found the company very similar to you, was frustrated with some of his rental properties and found Landlord Credit Bureau and said, oh man, this is an amazing idea. And you'll see a similar story with a lot of us that came to this company. And what we do is we have several unique features, but the one that is truly unique in Canada is the ability to secure a trade line on a tenant's credit report. And what this means is that on a monthly basis, as a tenant pays their rent, it has a positive impact on their credit report. And when they don't pay their rent, or when there's debt outstanding, then it has that negative impact. And this is really our way of giving landlords that same sort of power ability that banks, insurance companies, or utilities, credit cards have, that they actually track those payments to give you an incentive to give them, knowing how important credit is for an individual.
Now, has that existed before, where it actually is impacting the tenant's credit report? Has that been in place before, or is this fairly new to the industry?
Yeah, this is new to the industry, especially in Canada. So there are some of the very large very large landlords that will have a direct partnership with Equifax, similar to what we do, but we are the only one in Canada that is able to do this on a vast scale. And the unique thing about our property is we allow it to happen if you have one unit, or if you have hundreds or tens of thousands of units, we're able to cater to your needs. And that's never existed.
Okay, so we know that the news has been rife with a lot of bad cases, let's just say. I mean, I know the Toronto Star had one where we've had these professional tenants. One of them was fined. I mean, he hadn't paid rent, I think, for something like 2 years that he's been able to get away without doing that. There's been other types of what we call professional tenants. They just don't pay. They may come across looking really nice, but when they go in there, that's it. They stop paying. And the way the rules are set today, it's actually very hard, and even harder during COVID because they've put a ban, on the evictions. So now you're left with all of these landlords that are without thousands and thousands of dollars of rent. What can they do right now during these COVID times? Like what's the impact right now?
Yeah, I don't think there's any better time for our product than right now. Exactly as what you said. Landlords' hands are tied. And so what we enable you to do is give an immediate impact to those tenants that owe you money. And I mean, we're not in the business of destroying people's credit. Like, really what we want to do is create that conversation between the landlord and the tenant, so that if they can't pay you in full, like, get them on a payment plan and then use our product to help hold them accountable. So then you can actually keep them in there, keep them paying. So if you do have a tenant that does owe you money, you can register that tenant with us and report the total debt that's owed. And from that point in time until the debt is completely wiped out, that will have an impact on their credit report. And it's important to note that this works for both current as well as former tenants. So several landlords, as you mentioned, you have professional tenants that might leave you high and dry, holding the bag of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. So what we can actually do is reach out and have that impact, so that when they do go and pull their credit report, that is there. Another thing that's important to add here is we also track their payment history within our system. So we are able to show all those payments that the landlord records, both positive and negative, as well as the landlord can leave a review on that tenant. And so if they left damage, or let's say you wouldn't rent to them again, or there was a lawsuit that was in place, then that record will follow that tenant. So when a future landlord goes and actually does their due diligence on them, they'll be able to not only pull their credit report, which would show the negative impact of them not paying rent, but then they'd also be able to see within our database to say, okay, this individual actually skipped out on rent, they left the place in shambles, or conversely, okay, this person skipped out on rent, but then they actually stuck with a payment plan. So then you can make your own decision on whether you want to rent to that individual or not.
Like, I know landlords or property managers do a lot of due diligence, usually when, they vet basically possible tenants. And unfortunately, there's a few that are bad in there and they spoil the bunch. And that's the one that affects the whole industry. But I would like to say, probably to a lot of the viewers, the majority of tenants are usually good.
For sure. Yeah, it's unfortunately you spend so much time talking about the bad tenants, right? But unfortunately, that is the thorn that just sticks in. It wrecks your returns, it wrecks your nights, it wrecks your days. Like, yeah, that nobody likes to deal with that. So that's really where we come in. And there's a lot of great services out to help that tenants. Like, we see ourselves as a partnership or a complement to them, but our real unique offering is to be able to help monitor that tenant behavior after they move in. And so when you have a tenant that currently exists, there's no way to truly predict what's actually going to happen. You could do all your due diligence, but we provide is that monthly reminder of, okay, if you pay me rent, you get this benefit. And if you don't, there's this consequence that will take effect immediately if you decide you aren't going to pay me rent this month.
I like the idea when you say there's consequence that they don't pay their rent, because like we've mentioned, there's a lot of cases out there that are not, even to the ones which unfortunately right now during COVID times can pay the rent, but opt not to, which is a totally different ball of wax, really, from the ones that lost their job or have to stay home because they're a caregiver, let's say to the children that can't go to school. Mind you, we're in the summer right now, but all of this has impacted a lot of people. But there has been a lot of federal and also provincial programs out there to help people that are in need. And I think one of the key things too, because you mentioned the words too a while ago about having maybe a rental agreement with some of these people. Now, those are not the ones that are going to be impacted, right, with your system.
No.
The ones that have spoken to their landlord saying, I'm having difficulty. What can we do to kind of help me out just for the time being during this pandemic?
Right. Yeah, I think the first thing we're trying to spark is that conversation to really understand whether that person is holding out because they just don't want to pay rent, or if it's, okay, I can't pay rent, but I'm eager to help. Like, I understand that you have a mortgage and that I have rent, and right now the math that used to exist a month ago doesn't work anymore. Let's figure it out. And I think most landlords are coming from a place where, okay, I want to have that conversation. I'm in this for the long haul. I'm trying to accumulate wealth over a long time period. And so I understand that being able to provide a home that's safe for tenants and provide a place where you are actually trying to create that communication and great community is of importance. But what we really can help you with is those tenants that just are going to skip town. And like, this is one way that you can, it helps you from the standpoint, okay, I can act on this today, and then if you need to take further ramifications down the road, then you can do that. It doesn't exclude you from going to the landlord tenant board or going to other areas, right? So this is really a first course of action that can start to have an impact right now. And we found that for the landlords that we use, we're at well over 30,000 users right now, and it's actually reduced delinquencies by over a third, which is huge.
I hope that people recognize, just that I've seen from information I've seen on your website, that this is something that the industry has really needed for a long, long time. Because, I mean, as a landlord, again, when you're doing that due diligence, you can call a previous landlord. You don't know if you're actually talking to the previous landlord, or it's just some bogus name and number, that they've given you because they are a bad tenant and they don't want you to know about their previous landlord. I mean, that happens in the industry. We recognize that. But being able to have a system now, are you going to be, like, are landlords going to be able to go and check this system and saying, are they a good tenant or are they a bad tenant? Will they be able to do that?
Yeah, they will. So that's not live right now. So probably looking for that to go live in the next month or two, where you can actually search our database. And right now we relaunched in February with a new website, some of these new features, and we wanted to make sure that, especially given the current time, that you could actually impact that credit. We saw that as being the main feature that we wanted to put our efforts into rolling out, whereas the searching functionality will be able to happen here fairly soon. So we'll be able to help from that standpoint. I think another important thing that you mentioned was the idea that some of these tenants, they don't necessarily want you to share this data, right? So there's a lot of concerns regarding that privacy of, okay, I'm concerned this record follows me. So the way we have operated, or the way we're structured, we actually hold the same kind of distinction as an Equifax being a credit reporting bureau. And so what that allows is, as a landlord, you don't actually need the consent from the tenant to report to us, which is really important. So when you're trying to collect from that individual that does actually owe you money, you're able to do that without having to first go get a monetary order or to go take any other steps. You can truly come to us first, and we can help start that conversation to help get you paid.
Like I said, I'm just excited about what is coming. And as you said, there's going to be more rollouts coming out over the next little while. But right now, today, what is available for landlords today, right now?
Yeah, so right now, it's that ability that you can report tenant payments, good and bad, to us, and we can report them. They will be recorded within our own system, as well as for our premium feature, we'll report those directly to Equifax, so they will impact their credit report as well.
So we're going to be helping build that database so that in a few months' time, or less than a few months, but in a short while, then we'll be able to access that database to know whether they're a good tenant or a bad tenant.
Totally. Like so much of this industry, it's landlords helping landlords, right? It's sharing information, giving those reviews, and going back to my comment regarding privacy, like, we're a transparent system. So there's a lot of negative connotations with things like blacklists. Like, we're not a blacklist. We don't do anything illegal here. So we report both positive and negative behavior, as well as we send an email right away to the tenant, giving them login information, telling them to verify what's going on. Yes. So as much as we've talked about tenants that skip out or have negative behavior, can be true with landlords as well. And so we give those tenants the power to go in and say, you know what, I actually have paid rent. And if they can verify that that's the case, then we mitigate that need. But it can also happen the tenant says, oh, no, I don't owe money, whereas the landlord can then provide the lease that states things exactly. Then, of course, we side with the landlord. So that's the benefit of being able to have that transparent system and having us as a third party that can help mitigate some of those disputes. So then the tenant actually knows that those consequences do exist, or they do get to benefit from the rewards as well.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because from a previous life, I used to work for a regulatory body in government. And that was the first thing I said, okay, what's the legality behind here? How can you be reporting bad tenants? And who's going to have access to this information?
Yeah. Well, remember how this is kind of the first in Canada this has been done, and our CEO being a former lawyer and former RCMP officer, there's a lot of things that need to be checked out and done for this to be able to occur. And so we take this very seriously. And, that was one of the challenges with the role, is making sure that you abide by all the laws that are different sometimes provincially than federally, and making sure that you can actually service landlords in a way that offers them value and similar to the tenants. So, this is kind of the solution that we've come up to, and I think it's a pretty good one.
What I like is that balance that you seem to create, because it's all very nice as a landlord saying, wow, we're going to have a database to find out about all these bad tenants or good tenants if we're reporting. And again, that's going to be a key thing, right? Is that landlords, property managers are going to have to report regularly to be able to feed that database. Yeah. But what about that tenant who maybe some of the tenants are even listening now and saying, whoa, what do you mean you're reporting on me? What is going to be said about me? So what you don't want is to have, let's say, a landlord that is just not happy about his tenant and wants to put something on his record. Now, what's going to stop that from happening?
Well, everything has to be verified, as I mentioned. So when you sign in as a tenant, when you sign up as a landlord, you have to verify your identification with us. So let's say you're a property manager, you have to upload that document to say that you are an agent for these properties. You don't have to upload every lease, but if there's ever a dispute, you have to be able to produce that lease to show, okay, this person was supposed to pay me, call it $2,000 a month. So we truly can help mitigate some of those issues when they do arise.
I love that. And like you say, tenants will have access to that system too, to be able to see what was said about them. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, that does exist right now, where the tenants log in. And you mentioned a really good point of kind of the initial backlash to say, oh, I'm being reported, this is negative. And we find so much of that is just a communication. And this is another area where we can really help, where we send out welcome emails to all the tenants that get registered with us so that they know they are getting reported. And it's a very positive thing, focusing on the benefits to say, okay, this is good. Like if you have questions, either reach out to us or reach out to your landlord, your property manager. And then if there is payments that are outstanding, then we send them late payment notifications, or, oh, your rent is due, or, oh, you owe money. Or we can even send automated monthly rental reminders. So some of your landlords, property managers that are listening to this, you're already going to use systems which will have some of those automated features built into it. That's fine. Our features you can turn on or off depending on the type of communication that you want us to handle. But that's another service that we can offer, is to really kind of provide that little nudge or that little reminder that just goes to those tenants every single month to say, okay, right, I need to pay my rent this month, which for most of us I would think is top of mind, but life gets busy, and it's also a good reminder that, okay, I got to pay this month, and that's going to truly help benefit my credit.
So from just what you just said, it sounds like there's more services coming in than what you offer today that's going to be helping those landlords. Like you say, you're going to be issuing reminders or whatever. Is this like in place of a property manager, complementing a property manager?
Yeah, I wouldn't say what we're doing replaces a property manager. We like to think of ourselves as a partner or complementing their services. So the email function is live, and so even as a landlord, you can scroll through and see what emails were actually sent. You can be BCC'd on them, so you have a record. We have some landlords that will actually print out our emails, and they'll either mail them or drop them off at the door of their tenants as well, just say, okay, this was emailed to you as well as dropped off at the door. You do know what's going on. You know you owe me money. And so they use that as kind of that additional functionality. But yeah, we're not trying to replace property managers. I mean, that's an important thing to say. It's like we're truly just trying to enhance what they can offer and give them an extra arrow in their quiver, shall we say, that they can enhance their properties. And for a lot of people, this is a great marketing tool. I mean, we're getting a lot of traction. Think of new immigrants into Canada. I moved down to the US several years ago, and I didn't have any credit because it doesn't transfer borders. So for most people, their largest monthly expense is rent. And so if you can use that to help build up your credit, or think of children's student housing where they're just starting out trying to understand what the importance of building credit is. Like, this is an area where you can attach this to your properties and say, we help you build your credit just by paying your rent, like something you're going to do anyways. And this is something that we're willing to provide to you. What a great marketing tool you can offer for your properties.
Yeah, that's exciting actually for tenants, because I've had, let's say, young tenants apply for one of our units. And the thing is they don't have any credit to show. And as a landlord, one of the things you do is always get a credit report, right, on the tenants, because it gives you like history and it gives you a story. And it's just one of the tools we use to be able to vet those tenants. But when you've got a student who has not had a full-time job yet, so their credit is like, there's like nothing there. There's nothing to show. And you kind of say, okay, what other tool can I use here? And the thing is like, I've had tenants tell me, well, listen, I have OSAP, which is the student assistant program, or I have money from my parents. I have this, I have that. But he says, I can't show you proof of income because I'm not working. So therefore they don't have that credit. But I like the fact that these young people, if they're going to school or whatever, brand new on the workforce, they don't have that credit history yet. And the fact that we as landlord can start reporting monthly, and it actually starts giving them a credit rating, I love that. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah, it's
absolutely
really great.
Amazing also to be able to help those tenants also, because not all tenants that have a low credit score are going to be bad.
No. And I mean, that's where you look at the two sides of our platform, right? So we have our own internal database where it's got, we call it the tenant resume. And that's something that a tenant can share with their future landlord. They can go and say, hey, I know my credit for whatever reason might not be great, but you think of markets like Vancouver and Toronto where it's so competitive. If a tenant comes to you and says, here's the last 3 years of my rental payment, you'll show that I've never missed a payment. They'll show the reviews from the past landlord to show there was no damage, the place was kept clean, and here's a positive review from them. Like, man, you're going to rent that tenant right away. So it helps them skip those lines and truly stand out in a crowd where, again, it's just another way you can kind of add to that vetting tool and truly get the good tenants in there that you want.
So might have just mentioned it, but I just want to touch maybe a little bit more is today, this is a new system. I'm learning about it. I want to do this, but I've had bad tenants before. Or I've had really good tenants before. What can we as landlords do about that?
Yeah, so right now you can sign up and you can input them. So you can report them to us for free. That's always a free component. So if you have tenants that owe you money or you just want to leave a good review on them, you can do that within the system. If you do want that Equifax component, you can do that. And typically right now, I'd say that is for tenants that actually owe you money. So if you're trying to collect from a former tenant, it's a good place to come to us first, report that total debt that's owed. So thinking on accumulating, it might add up every single month. If it's a current tenant, or if it's a former tenant, it might just be a lump sum that they owe you. So log that in with us and you can start building that resume for them, as well as impacting their credit right away.
Wow. Like I said, I just find this really exciting, and I'm hoping that everybody listening, recognizes the benefits of being able to start reporting. But it's going to take a lot of people to start reporting for this to take effect. But I think if we see the benefits of it as a landlord, to be able to tell later on whether you're getting a good tenant or bad tenant, I think is going to be really beneficial there. So
I'll maybe stop you for a second there, because I agree from the database standpoint, the more people in it, the more it's benefit. But I think it's important to recognize that as a landlord as well, like the ability to have that lever that you can pull on to impact that credit, to help monitor that tenant behavior. Like, that doesn't matter how many people are in the system, because that's a relationship between you and that tenant. And so that person's credit is theirs. And so if they're not paying you, your ability to impact them has an effect. Whereas if they're a great tenant, like that's going to have a huge benefit for them regardless of how many other people are in the system. So that's why we tend to focus on the both sides of the system that that the landlords can benefit from.
I guess famous question that'll probably pop up at any time is there a cost for landlords? Because I know you said there's no cost right now to record into the system,
yep.
basically whether they're paying or not paying, whether they're delinquent or not. But is there a cost to a landlord to be able to use future services? Or get access to credit reports, for instance?
Yeah. So credit reports are a good question. We get that all the time. We're just in the process. We'll be rolling that out here very soon as well. You'll start to get a theme here that we're continuing to enhance this platform as we hear from landlords and know ourselves from the industry of what they're looking for. The paid feature right now it's $19.99 a month plus 60 cents per active lease. And the way that we've structured that is it allows you to actually report to Equifax. So that's the main thing that you're purchasing, is that ability to secure that trade line to impact their credit report. And so if you're on the premium feature, you can report former tenants for free. There's no additional 60 cents cost for that. And on a lease, you could have 1 to 5 tenants on there. So it's really paid based on how many leases are active within our database on that monthly basis. And what that allows is that scalability. So we want to serve the individual that has one property that needs us, and we want to be able to also offer our services for some of the large players. So if you are fairly large, and there's people that have a lot of questions, like by all means, please reach out to me, especially when you get into the enterprise understanding, working with different softwares and kind of the maintenance cost of what it is on an ongoing basis for time. Like that's a question that comes up quite a bit. And one of our employees he's managed 150 units in the past where he's used this software and takes him less than 30 minutes a month to update the system, just based on how intuitive it is and the defaults that we have built in. So yeah, that's kind of a quick synopsis of the cost, both monetary as well as your time.
Now, one of the things I think is you're available in Canada as well as in the US, right?
That's correct, yes.
And are we right across Canada, or are there any special pockets that,
so not Quebec right now. And I hesitate to say that because we do have some people that live in Quebec that maybe own properties outside, right? So we tend to say we don't serve Quebec right now, but across Canada and across the US, except Quebec.
Except Quebec, which is unfortunate because it does happen at times, but it is what it is, within Canada. But I just want to make that clear too, because I know there's going to be a few people watching that live on the Quebec side and may have rentals on the Quebec side. So, that in itself has any particular impact. So Stuart has had some questions there, and I don't know if he can actually kind of pop them up on screen so that maybe we can get to a few of them.
That'd be great.
We're just trying to figure out here, like I said, it's a new platform for us, right? So just trying to figure out how the questions are going to pop up. And let's see. If not, maybe I can actually read them. Where is it? Oh, how about tenants who have caused willful damage?
Okay. Yeah, so damage is a really good question. We get this. So unless you have a monetary order, we stay away from damage. And the reason is that it's often fairly objective. And so if you think about what I was mentioning early on is about the transparency and being able to validate what, let's say, the cost of rent was based on what's written in a lease, like that is how we are able to report. So if you say, oh, this person caused me $10,000 worth of damage, and you input it into our system, there's no way to verify it. So we stay away from damage at that point. But that being said, when you're leaving a review for that tenant, you can actually put that into their notes and say, this person caused an estimated X amount of damage, as well as within our 6 objective questions that we ask. Then it allows you to also input that, yes, they have caused damage to your property.
So we will have access to that type of information, the database, through reviews?
Yes, that's correct.
But again, it will not affect their credit report unless they actually owe you money.
Right. So something like that, unless it's a monetary order where it's an explicitly stated kind of a contract basis, say this person owes you X dollars, then we stay away from reporting that to Equifax just for legality reasons. whereas it can be reported to us in kind of those review section because it is objective and because you're able to then go through and say, okay, this is what the actual damage was. And it's an estimate at that point in time. It's not a hard fact, typically.
Okay. Sorry, I have trouble reading, and my screen is small enough that I have trouble reading the question.
That's okay. I can read it out. So the question is, how often are tenant arrears sent to the credit bureaus? So you can report to us as often as you want. We find most landlords go and they, let's say on the second they report, you only have to update those individuals that either didn't pay your rent, or you only have to update tenants that moved out. So our default is that everybody stays the same and everybody paid their rent. So you only have to make updates when that's different. So the interactions with us can be as often as possible. With Equifax, we report once a month, and we tend to give tenants and landlords some time to help to mitigate some of those disputes. So if you report a tenant that hasn't paid on the 3rd, it's not like we're going to report them right away on the 4th. We're going to give them time through the communication to interact with you to mitigate some of that dispute before we actually go and report it.
Is there more questions coming in? Yeah, can we?
Yes, you can put
existing tenants on this, or just next tenant? We've kind of covered that, but if you just want to kind of recap that.
Yeah, you can do both. So they would say a couple things to add to that is, we've mentioned former, you can add current, you can, your future tenants as well. On our website, or if you have questions, you can reach out to me and I can send you some clauses to put into your leases and applications. And I think this is a really great tool for all landlords to have. And what this does is it actually gives you that written consent, which isn't required, but it's really nice to have. And what it does is it actually sparks that conversation between you and a tenant. So as they're reading through the lease, they say, oh, I see you mentioned that you're going to be reporting payments here. Can you explain that? And then you can talk through some of the benefits and talk through those consequences. So with current tenants, we default to you to help with that communication, and we can help supplement that. And then with with future tenants, having these clauses in those leases, it just gives that written consent to make that transition really smooth.
I like that, because in Ontario, I mean, other provinces will be different, but we have a standardized lease that we use. However, we can add extra information or extra things that we want from our lease. For instance, some people may have smoking clauses or that type of stuff that's in there. So that actually would probably be an additional benefit to have those clauses. Because one of the things is, we need to have their permission anyways to go get a credit report. So being able to be right up front to them saying, hey, we are going to report this. It's a little bit like when you're asking somebody, or telling them, not asking, but telling them, hey, we're going to do credit checks and we're going to do a criminal check. Some of them won't bother to apply.
Absolutely.
Because they go, no, I don't want them to know about me. So having something like that in the lease that says, hey, we're going to report, they have that option to either apply or not apply. And if they don't apply, so much the better for that landlord.
Totally. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Love that. So will we be able to offer the credit rating retroactive for good tenants? Yeah,
so you can, not directly to Equifax at this point in time, but you will be able to build their report with us. So that would be a benefit for them.
Right. So I know that Stuart had a while ago the ticker tape there going that had your name and contact info. So the one thing I do want people to know how to get a hold of you. So I'm going to get Stuart to put up the info, but if you don't mind just going through and say, how do people get a hold of you if they want to have more information or they want to participate in this? How do they get a hold of you, Grant?
Yeah, so first thing you can do is go to our website, landlordcreditbureau.com. Poke around. There's a lot of additional resources and information that we have there. It's free to sign up and start to use. We have resources for landlords built within there as well. If you do have questions, this is a new service that most people are hearing about for the first time. It's something that often requires a bit of explanation or understanding how to best utilize it. So feel free to reach out to me. My cell phone number is there, 647-268-5347, or you can email me. My email address is there. I'm happy to help talk through any questions, even jump on a screen share and show you the system, whatever you find is going to be most useful for you, just so you can truly see the value out of our system. We're excited just to talk to people and start getting you on board. So whatever we can do to help, don't hesitate to ask.
I know that's absolutely wonderful. We've got it going there. Now, I know that I think you have the .com and the .ca, right?
Yep.
So does it matter which one people use, whether it's landlordcreditbureau.com or landlordcreditbureau.ca? Does it really matter?
Yeah, no, the information is the same. Like when you're going to sign up, you'll want to sign up through the Canadian version. And what that does is just think of data security. So it keeps the Canadian data in the right spot. And we have, so that would be, you can go to the .com and you can easily navigate to the Canadian site when you do want to sign up.
All I know is this has been most insightful, and I trust that a lot of the landlords and property managers out there have been going, wow, this is something we have needed, and we're so glad that you're coming on the scene. And although you've been on the scene for a little while, I don't know if you've been operating more in the US or operating more in Canada, but I think you're stepping up a lot of your efforts. From what you've been saying is there's going to be a lot more stuff coming in. So we're going to be hearing more from you or from Landlord Credit Bureau over the next while.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're split about 50-50 between Canada and the US. And as you say, we've kind of done a big major push here recently as with our relaunch. And so we're excited to now be more in the market, to be speaking with more people. And Denise, thank you for reaching out. I think platforms like this are good because there's inevitably questions that are coming out. And frankly, we believe a lot in this real estate market. So a lot of us have been involved with it for a while. And so we're really out there to truly help and enhance this experience for people. So I'm excited for what's to come.
Well, all I can say is thank you for this. It's been absolutely wonderful that you've been able to come online and just kind of have that conversation, because just exactly that, a conversation, just letting people know who you are and what it is that you do and the benefits that we're going to have as landlords, and being able to report those bad tenants and actually have it show up on their credit report. But alternately, the good tenants can actually build their credit report. So there's call it that level playing field, I guess, for good ones and bad ones. And that's what I like too, that it's not just one-sided, because the whole idea is we want tenants to be able to live where they are properly, and having good landlords too. That reminds me, can they do anything towards landlords, these tenants?
Yeah, that is going to be coming out pretty soon. So the ability as well for tenants to review landlords, and again, all that will be vetted through us as well. So what we're looking for is we're not trying to create a place where you can poke hate at people. It's objective information that's quantifiable, that really it gives tenants as well as landlords the ability to search. So right now we view the greatest need as being on that landlord side. And so that's kind of where we started building out this functionality, especially knowing that the benefits reap into the tenants right away. So that's where we stand.
I mean, objectivity, qualitative, that's what I like too, because again, it isn't just a wild goose chase or somebody just, trying to badmouth somebody else. It needs to be supported by facts, basically, and can be easily verifiable. And that I really, truly like. So I like the fact that you offer that carrot, yet you have that stick. Basically, good tenants, bad tenants, and I think it's going to be a great, great benefit for all landlords and tenants alike. So again, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Brant, and looking forward to what's coming, with the Landlord Credit Bureau. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So there we go, folks. I mean, this is absolutely wonderful. And I hope that you got lots of information from here. Go and check out their website. Call if need be, write to Grant, but do get that information and see how you can be a participant in finding out about our good tenants and bad tenants, just to be able to help you. And it's like a big tool for landlords that is going to be coming here, something that has been really, really been needing for a long time. So thank you again for tuning in, and well, thank you.